Welcome to This Week in Health IT, where we amplify great thinking to propel healthcare forward. My name is Bill Russell, Healthcare CIO Coach and creator of This Week in Health IT, a set of podcast videos and collaboration events dedicated to developing the next generation of health leaders. This episode and every episode since we started the COVID-19 series has been sponsored by Sirius Healthcare. Special thanks to Sirius for supporting the show's efforts during the crisis. Don't forget, we've gone to 3 shows a week now. Tuesday, we cover the news on Tuesday Newsday, and we have interviews with industry influencers on Wednesday and Friday. This Friday, however, we are observing a holiday, so we are dropping a show on Monday. I'm always looking for technologies that I think can have a significant impact on health, and thermal imaging is one of those technologies that really finds itself at the right place at the right time. It's not a silver bullet, but it gets us a long way towards reopening our society and returning to normal. Today, I speak with 2 industry leaders in the field who I got a chance to hear talk about this technology back in December, and I don't think any of us anticipated how important it would become just 6 months later. I hope you enjoy. All right, today we're joined by Jill Klein and Jeff Kenkel. Good morning, you two, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning.
I wanted to do a show to explore thermal imaging, and I saw the 2 of you discuss this topic back in December of last year at an event that I was speaking at. And, I'm really excited to have the 2 of you on the show for a deeper dive into this topic. There's so much application right now. Did you have any idea back in December that this technology would be as important as it is today, given all the things that have gone on? Jill, how about we start with you?
Sure. In December, I don't think any of us saw or knew what was coming at us. The interesting thing about this is that this virus has helped transform some of these niche solutions like thermal imaging and kind of put them front and center. And I've been in IT space for probably 25 years, and I'm not sure that I've ever seen something be transformed and reemerged and added at this pace. Updates and regulations are happening in real time, so it's a very exciting and interesting time here.
All right, I guess before we get too far into this, we should talk about what is thermal imaging and get an overview. And Jeff, you are the technologist of the 3 of us, so I'll let you go into the deep dive on what is thermal imaging.
Well, it's actually very complex. The technology, though, is advanced massively. Just briefly, historically, if it's of interest, it really started in the 1960s with the U.S. military applications and has advanced since. And back to your original question, I could not imagine that this was going to be happening back in December of this past year, but actually kind of excited because I think there's some very valuable things that not only you can do with this with COVID, but before. But to your question, what you can do with COVID, but even other diseases and other situations within the organizations going forward. So the technology itself measures energy, and it measures thermal energy. And it's a little different than what you see on a camera, but there's some similarities as well. And what we're doing is looking at skin temperature and how that ends up correlating to someone's body temperature. And we have a good indication of whether somebody is febrile or not.
Well, how accurate is it at this point?
Well, it's actually the sensor technology is extremely accurate. And so the challenges that may make the accuracy change a little bit are the scenarios in which it is the measurements are taken. So this thermal sensitivities are phenomenal at less than 50 millikelvin sensitivity. So you can pick up very, very subtle temperature changes, but there are many things that have to go on in measuring temperature. So we like to make sure that when we're working with our customers that we can help them set up so that they can get the best temperature measurements and accuracy. So you can get down to a half of a degree of Fahrenheit in accuracy, and that's generally the spec that the reputable camera and thermal imaging companies provide. So.
All right, so I'm sure I'm going to have more technical questions as we go along, but is this the same with thermal imaging? Is it the same thing as cameras? I can get a $50 thermal imaging thing from Best Buy, or I can get a $5,000 thermal imaging camera from somebody else, and they run the gamut? Is it sort of the same?
That's absolutely correct. I'd probably say the ranges are anywhere from, well, you can have real small thermal sensors that you can purchase for your oven or your grill or in your kitchen, and those are in the sub $100 range. And then there's getting into more thermal imaging. You might start around 500, and you can go up even above 10,000 depending on your configuration. So.
Just to add to that, I think one of the advantages that the solutions that are coming to market right now is most of them are being paired with an IoT platform, which brings the machine learning and the AI and the analytics to these things to help provide notifications or to do detection of face masks or whatever else technology they add on at the time.
So that's interesting. So, all right, so let's start talking about the applications. So people have gotten this far into the podcast, they're saying, okay, why is this such a big deal? Why are you guys talking about this today? And I think a lot of people understand that, we're essentially able to tell if somebody has a higher temperature at this point, which is an indication of COVID. I mean, obviously it's dry cough and other things, but this is one of the early indications of it. So to be able to do that at the door of a facility or before somebody goes into a sporting event or somebody, you name it, has a lot of value. So talk about some of the applications and who do we see using this today?
So I think most organizations who have a large amount of employees that they need to bring back to work and they need to do it safely, it's serving a critical role in reopening our arenas and our airports and our hospitals and basically any place where there's a large amount of folks that are coming in. I think it's key for those employers to make sure that they provide that sense of safety to their employees as well, because that's part of their responsibility. It reduces their concerns, and the interesting thing is it's not new. They've used this technology with SARS and MERS and other outbreaks that have happened. I think one of the things that it does do for us versus a handheld camera, it reduces the time to enter those spaces and to enter them safely.
We'll get back to our conversation with Jill and Jeff in just a moment. Now, here's a brief message about thermal imaging from our sponsors.
Countries around the world begin to reopen. Companies are faced with an unprecedented challenge, finding an effective and discreet way to ensure a safe work environment. Workplaces of all sizes can use thermal imaging solutions to non-invasively screen workers, customers, or visitors for elevated body temperatures, helping identify those who might be sick. Autonomous screening systems can be easily mounted to an entrance wall or cart to efficiently provide accurate data to a targeted set of users. When appropriately used as part of a safe workplace initiative, these advanced solutions can minimize the spread of disease, help reduce costs associated with employee illness, or show your commitment to protect employees and customers. For more information about IoT thermal imaging solutions, speak with your Sirius representative. Visit SiriusCom.com or call us at 800-460-1237.
We are so grateful for our sponsors who allow us to bring this great content to you and really expand our services to the industry. Now, back to our show. But there's a way to deploy this correctly, right? So we actually had a pre-call yesterday and we were talking about this and some of the things didn't really dawn on me. But we really do have to take a picture in a way that doesn't take an awful lot of things from the background into account. And we almost have to set up a queuing system of some kind for people to get in front of this. Would one of you, share a little bit about what some of the considerations are as you're deciding how and where you're going to use this kind of technology?
Yeah, so ultimately you want to get people as they're coming in, but you have to be just a simple, basic example is if you have a door that's swinging open and that leads out to a parking lot, sort of what you would end up picking up on that, the blacktop or the asphalt that's sitting there, if it's been a hot day, that'll influence the measurement. So you've got outside factors that can influence the measurement. And there are techniques that you can use either in how you place the cameras and where you set things up and or equipment that you use to remove some of those or factor in some of those variables that can happen with you setting it up. But ideally, you'll want to place it at some point where people are coming in and then as they pass to areas where they're working, you'd be able to take a measurement, and or there's even self-measurement techniques that can go on as well. And then depending on what their temperature is, you can decide what the next steps in the process would be. Is maybe they shouldn't enter, maybe they have to take additional questions that as part of the overall process, or even get another temperature tech to verify.
Yeah. So Jill, you talked about this being integrated with AI, and I could see that, so it can actually focus down in on my face, make sure it's my face and not the person who's potentially standing behind me or anything to that effect. But couldn't it also be integrated into a lot of other like systems? I mean, and actually this is going to lead to a privacy conversation, but couldn't it tie into time tracking? Couldn't it tie into
Sure.
just a lot of things?
What we're seeing today is, right now everyone they know that they have to have some sort of thermal imaging as they bring people back to work. So that's the demand today. The demand tomorrow is PPE monitoring, it's contact tracing, it's integrating with their access controls, social distance monitoring. All those things are coming shortly after this. But in addition to that, the next phase is to truly use those IoT platforms that are joined with these. So you'll see smarter businesses happen out of this. You'll see organizations transform their operations to reduce cost. Some folks will even take the data to monetize it that they get from these IoT sensors. So it's a very exciting time in this space.
Yeah, I would imagine. So let's talk a little bit about what's the best way to say this? The policies that you would put in place at an organization, right? So I'm going to implement this. Maybe not for a baseball. I'll just put something on the ticket that says, hey, you have to pass through thermal imaging, that kind of stuff. But for bringing my people back to work, I've had some conversations with CIOs, and they're a part of the overall discussion for the health system, that clinical workers have been coming back to work. Well, they never left work, right? The clinical workers have been there. But now they're bringing the non-clinical people back, and they're struggling. And this is probably part of an overall solution to make people feel more comfortable and to provide a little another level of security and safety for the organization. What kind of things are people looking at in terms of policies to protect privacy and those kinds of things?
I guess one of the things that when we start talking to clients, we make sure that they include all the appropriate stakeholders when they have these projects. So those stakeholders are HR, you need facilities there, you need your security team, legal is very important, safety and health is somebody else that we kind of bring into this group. The other thing that we want folks to do is we want them to look at the design first and then determine what solution they need to implement. Look, as you said, we talked about location is very important. Understanding your traffic flow, how many people are coming through are very important. So there's a lot of different considerations. The other thing it's something to consider is it's in extremely high demand. Lots of organizations across America want this and they want it now. So you've got a bit of a supply chain and demand scenario going on here as well.
Jeff, one of the things I want to talk to you about is when you were presenting last December, you were talking about all sorts of applications of putting these in the patient room. Now, obviously, that has been very focused and very specific now. People are looking at how to address COVID, but it was fascinating to me how much data these things generate and all the potential applications for it. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things we were talking about in December in terms of what can be done with thermal imaging in the hospital room?
So we were talking about thermal imaging and LiDAR at that time, but the combination of the two, you can start to look at movement, but also then monitor temperature changes, right? And this is nice because it allows real-time data to be communicated. Now, depending on what you want to capture, you can generate a lot of data, or you can simply just get messages that are very small that would indicate changes in temperature, different types of movement that might be going on as a result.
But we can also, couldn't we also protect, one of the things is hand washing in the room, and it becomes during a pandemic becomes even more important. So we can actually monitor some of those movements around the floor from room to room, right?
Well, actually, we've been able to show with POCs with health systems whether even the proper procedures are occurring. Right. Sometimes in the rush of the moment, a particular step may be missed, and well, that's not so. Well, it may be important for many different reasons. But the beauty of it is that we can help compliance, and even something like bed turns, right? Was a patient turned in their bed? How many times, right? There's all sorts of debates, as I'm sure you're well aware, within hospitals about how many times a patient might have been turned or not. Well, you can have effectively a non identifiable view of someone actually performing a bed turn, right? So you could do this in a private, well, I don't know if I would say HIPAA compliant, but I would say anonymized fashion, and know that someone actually did that procedure in that room at that time. So the thermal imaging can tell us a lot about what, and the LiDAR can tell us a lot about where, right? And you can combine those two with AI and other what I'll call data orchestration technology to be able to provide some very interesting insights. So.
Yeah, I had Patrick Anderson. I'm going to ask you guys, for potentially, I mean, without maybe naming names, but where you've seen this go into, where this has been put into place. But Patrick Anderson with City of Hope was talking in one of our COVID series podcasts, and he talked about how they implemented this almost immediately in their hospitals at the front door, so that essentially as people were walking in, I think they actually had to walk up to a kiosk, get pretty close to it, but essentially it monitored the temperature of the people as they were coming in, so that they could really identify which staff was potentially at risk, because you can't test for COVID every day. I mean, it's actually I wouldn't say it's a comfortable test that they were doing at the time, and they wanted a way to say, okay, is anybody showing any indication? And then we're going to, escalate and do the proper testing for those people. They did it pretty early on. They identified it. Are you seeing that really generally across the board in different organizations at this point, Jill?
We see it in manufacturing facilities. We see it in restaurants, travel. So, Amazon, Toyota, Walmart, Starbucks, Carnival Cruise Lines, all of them are looking at this. So it's across most industries.
Wow. So we could actually have a shortage, and that's what you were trying to describe before. There could be a shortage of this technology just at a supply chain at this point.
Correct.
Wow. So are we seeing that already, or is there still ample supply of?
It's a textbook scenario for supply and demand.
All right. Is there something that differentiates the software, Jeff, as you're looking at this stuff?
Well, there's two different types of measurement techniques. One where they're using what's referred to as a calibrator. It's a black body is the official name for it, to make sure the measurements are accurate. Another uses a sampled average of people, and they're both accurate. There's FDA approved models of both for 510K clearance, and their software will look for particular places on the face. Some will use different techniques to make sure they're getting the best quality measurement, and it really varies based on the vendor, right? And I think an important point to make here, it's really important to work with a consultant or a system integrator to sort of make the right choices, because not all software is the right choice for each environment. But you can usually find something that works just right for a customer. So
yeah, I didn't properly introduce two of you to start. So actually, it's typical Bill Russell move here. At the end of the show, I'm going to have you two introduce yourself and who you work for, and how do you support this technology, I guess, today. So Jeff, we'll start with you.
So I'm an industry consultant. I've had quite a few number of years in healthcare and technology. I have a graduate degree in electro-optics, and just happy to be able to be working in that space inside of healthcare today. So I just, again, an industry consultant, I guess, probably the easiest way to describe my.
I help the industry with picking out thermal and imaging solutions. Got it. Jill, could you introduce yourself and how you support the technology?
Sure. My name is Jill Klein, and I am the senior leader of IoT at Sirius. I help pick the right vendors for our clients. I meet with clients. I do some high-level consulting. I also sit on 2 boards. I sit on CompTIA's IoT Advisory Council and also Tech Data's IoT and Analytics Advisory Council. Throughout my career, I've been very passionate about IT. I started way back when at a small cow-spotted company in North Sioux City, South Dakota called Gateway. So it's been a fun ride.
Wow. And IoT is really changing the game. We are generating an awful lot of data at the edge right now. It's interesting. We've had a couple of conversations. I want to thank you guys for coming on the show. If people want more information on thermal imaging, is there a way they can reach out to you or find out more information?
Absolutely. SiriusCom.com is our website, and the solutions are out there along with my contact information is there as well.
Fantastic. Thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Bill.
That's all for this week. Special thanks to our sponsors, VMware, Starbridge Advisors, Galen Healthcare, HealthLyrics, Sirius Healthcare, and ProTalent Advisors for choosing to invest in developing the next generation of health leaders. If you want to support the fastest growing podcast in the health IT space, most of you can say this now without me even finishing it. The best way to do that is to share it with a peer. Stop right now, send an email, tell somebody, hey, this is a great show. I'm getting a lot out of it. You're going to want to check out these interviews and conversations. The second best way you can do it is you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're putting an awful lot of new stuff out there, and it's exciting. The live show will only be available on the YouTube channel. It will not be dropped into the podcast channel. Some of you asked me to drop it in last time, but my team here internally wants me to stay focused on the strategy, and that is to have content that is specific to YouTube and to start to diversify our channels, if you will. So some of our content will only be available on YouTube. So get over there and subscribe so you know when it's available. Please check back often, as we're going to continue to drop shows on a daily basis through the end of June or until we get through this pandemic together. Thanks for listening. That's all for now.